All right, David Eickholt here with 24/7 Sports and HawkeyeInsider.com. Pleased to be joined by Tyler Kluver, Washed Up Walkons. If you haven't watched it, the KF Press Review Show. It's pretty great. People are saying it's one of the fastest rising podcasts in the Iowa market. I'm not going to say no, but we're here on a Sunday morning. Sean and Elliott had some technical difficulties last night. They were killing coverage, but we could not get a podcast recorded last night. So rewatched the game, digested it a little bit more. But Tyler, how are we feeling just post what happened yesterday?
It's tough when it's just deja vu, right? Like it hurts. It hurts a little bit. It hurts a lot of bit for some people. It's not the offensive performance that we're hoping for. We talked a lot about it on our show. Great. It is a great podcast, by the way. Rising up the ranks. It's a tough test. It's week 2. You have to be able to be ready to go. You can't have these games where you putz around for 3 games and then it's conference play by week 4 or 5 and you're finally ready to go. Like when you have Iowa State on the schedule, and Iowa State is what they are right now. This isn't the Iowa State of old. You can't be figuring things out, and you have to be ready to go for 4 quarters, and they weren't, specifically offensively. I think defensively it was actually a great day.
You can't ask for much more.
No, if you told anybody going into this game that hey, Iowa State's going to score 16 points and we're going to hold Rocco to 150 yards passing or whatever he had, 100 less than that, and the entire offense, Iowa State's entire offense to less than 240, every single Iowa fan is signing up for that.
Yes.
And so what that means, and the Iowa Hawkeye football team is signing up for that. And what that means is the offense somehow, some way has to find the answer offensively to win a ball game in that situation. And they couldn't do it. They had to play from behind, although it should have been from more behind. It felt like a gift that it was only 6-0 after those 2, very, very easily could have been touchdown possessions for Iowa State. It felt like it should have been much more than 13-10.5. And, you're happy that you put yourself in that game. And again, I think a thing that a lot of people will come back to, or should come back to this week, is the fact that this is a really good Iowa State team. This is a top 20 football team in the country. So we shouldn't feel bad about it. But when you're in that position, you got to be able to step up. And we did not have the guys to step up. We were outmatched. I think they are the better football team, especially right now, early in the season. They have more things figured out. And they have Rocco Becht and Bramer and Burkle, who are 3 studs who right now, currently, Iowa doesn't have. We don't have a guy that we can go to like that. So that's the result.
KF should not have said the team's healthy. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't really believe in too much of, he cursed it or anything like that. But who knows what's going to happen with Aston Ostrenga now. We're going to find out about him probably on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was weird.
Is still out. Reese Vanderzee is still out. And Mark Gronowski is taking a lot of criticism. And I'll tell you, it's rightfully so. But I'll also say this, Tyler. I thought that was Tim Lester's worst game as Iowa's offensive coordinator. I really do. I thought the couple long, like the touchdown drive was fantastic. Iowa ran the ball down their throats. Iowa basically avoided trying to take the top off the defense, because I'll tell you, I know people are saying, that PI on Seth Anderson. I loved it. They finally threw the ball downfield. I'll tell you, man, if that's not a PI, he scores on that. Like, that was a perfect downfield pass from my vantage point and what I was able to see. But they ran some of that slow mesh, and Iowa State had no idea what the hell was going on. I don't know why they abandoned it. And that was so mind-boggling to me. And then, I thought we should have seen a little bit more of Xavier Williams. I thought Jazz Patterson probably should have gotten some more run as well. I think Mark Gronowski, the way the final drive was really is going to cast a shadow on everything else. But there were far more issues than Mark. Iowa had at least 4 drop passes. I think they only put 2 of them on the official stat sheet. But if you watch the game, like, there were at least 4 obvious drops that he couldn't have put it right anymore on the money, right? But you cannot take back-to-back sacks there on that possession, man. It was nearly 3. I don't know, the pocket awareness wasn't there. And at some point, like, at least throw a pick and not take a sack. At least take a shot downfield, right? Iowa was close, but I think everyone will say this. Iowa did not deserve to win that football game. And I think everybody knew once Gabe Burkle caught that 3rd down after that tip from Xavier Townsend, I think most Iowa fans, if they want to be honest, I think they knew the game was over.
Yeah.
Conradi was always going to make that field goal. He's one of the best kickers in the country. And I think this cast a bigger issue, and this is what my post-game column is going to be. It's going to come out shortly after this podcast. There is no faith in Iowa's 2-minute offense. When's the last time Iowa's had a thorough 2-minute game-winning drive offense? And I thought Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson nailed it on the broadcast, on the rewatch, Tyler. They flat said Iowa's not comfortable in this position. They want the long sustaining drives. You have to be comfortable in the 2-minute. That's just what happens with being a normal, good football team. So, again, I thought TJ Hall was fantastic. I think that's positive. I think Reese Dakin had a good day, and Caden Weechen's got figured out. I'll leave it at that, and I'll throw it back at you.
It was a tough day for Weechen, who's been great. He probably had three instances, specific plays he can look back on that he really wants back. The thing that I keep coming back to, it doesn't make it any better, but maybe this is just the way my player mind thinks about it is that this is it. It doesn't make it any better as I say it, but this is a better football team than the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Iowa State Cyclones are a better football team than the Iowa Hawkeyes as it stands right now in 2025. And that hurts to say, it hurts to hear. But it's better to lose to a team that is better than you than a team that is not better than you. And there's some that sort of context should be sort of laid as a foundation here. When you talk about Iowa didn't deserve to win this game, agreed. Like I said, it didn't feel like it should be 13-10 at half. It felt like it should be 21-6 or 21-10
Sure.
or 21-3, something along those lines. And it is. I don't have an answer because I have to get on here and talk and sort of work through things and figure things out, not only on your show but on our show.
Yeah.
I've been trying to reconcile why everybody's idea of why are we not more aggressive in the first half? Why, the one long pass that we threw and we get the PI on it and that extends a drive for us. It's 3rd and 2 and we decide to throw a 40-yard bomb. Very uncharacteristic of Iowa and the conservative kind of approach. Why are we not doing more of that? I don't have the answer. I think the first part of that answer is simply the success percentage on that because of our personnel is not great. When you look at our receivers, our big, tall threat to win 50-50 balls has a broken foot. How often are we going to throw it to Seth Anderson or Sam Phillips or Jacob Gill, and they're going to win those balls? Like, are we being aggressive to hope that we can get a PI? So there's some nuance there.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought about was, well, everybody said, you and I sat there and said, Lystico, Doctorman, every single podcast media outlet that covered this game leading up to the Saturday was Iowa needs to establish their run. They ran for 300 yards against Albany. Well, you want them to be aggressive, but you want them to establish the run game. When you only have so many offensive plays, and it actually turned, this was actually a little bit uncharacteristic of this Iowa State game. We actually did own time of possession and more offensive plays. But relative to what you're thinking, how you're thinking this game is going to go, you're like, okay, we only have so many offensive plays here. It's not like we're just going to win this thing 35-25 on the game clock, and we're going to have all these drives to work with. Like, these type of rivalry games come down to slowing it down. It's a low possession game. So you have to make each of those count. And then when you're inside of each of those drives, you're looking at it, and you're like, okay, let's establish the run, right? They got the 3-man front. We should be able to win with Logan Jones and Dunker in our offensive line and our run game and our deep stable of backs. Let's establish the run. It's hard to do that if you also take the idea of let's be aggressive, let's throw it downfield. Like those are competing offensive objectives, right? And so, and then if you're trying to do both, now it's like if you half-ass everything, you're not whole-assing one thing, right?
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
you got to pick and choose. And we tried to choose the run. And we were able to open that up, especially with the slow mesh. Crazy that came out.
That blew my mind when they finally pulled
and it blew
that out.
Iowa State's mind too. You could see Iowa State's guys are like, we don't know what we're doing here. What are we supposed to do against this?
I thought Mark had a great read on that too. He waited for the linebacker to take off, and then he just looked so much more comfortable doing that as well. And again, you're right. I do think there's a couple of things to kind of combat that, though. There was a span in the game, Tyler, where Iowa ran 32 of the last 36 plays from scrimmage.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. They ran, I think, 13 straight times. At some point, you got to throw in a play action. Now, I do think a couple of those runs ended up Mark leaving the pocket and getting some yardage on his own. So there were some passing plays called. The other side of it, too, is I actually thought Mark ran the ball really well. His rushing numbers were depleted because of the back-to-back sacks at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But he was constantly picking up the tough yards with his feet, doing some good things as well. The other side of Leicester that really, I think, disappointed me from what I expected to see and wanted to see, Iowa's scripted plays have to be better. Like, it just seems like they don't have any success at the beginning of games. I mean, go back to Albany, go back to times last year, unless Caleb Johnson just busted out like a big run, right? You spend all week working on your first couple series or the first 20 plays, and you're not getting anything. I mean, I think before Iowa's like one of the last plays of the first quarter, I'm going to make sure I pull it up right now. Yeah, I think Iowa got like 13 yards. Yeah, Mark got 13 yards in the quarterback keeper to end the first quarter. Tyler, Iowa had 10 yards before. So you spend all week working on the scripted plays and you're only getting 10 total yards. Like, that's an issue that does play a factor, I think, later in the game when you don't get off to that hot start. And again, there were other miscues, but I think we have to focus on the offense here. And I think that's what is just so frustrating Iowa's fan base globally. I think there's a lot more issues other than Mark. I think the wide receivers are not as good as what, Iowa's led to believe and a lot of people are led to believe. Now, again, I think the passing game does look a little bit different if they have Reese Van Der Zee. I'm not saying he makes a world of difference, but you could tell just based on the videos behind the scenes, like that was going to be the guy. He was going to be Iowa's number one guy, right? But at some point, man, you have to find a way to break through. You have to throw the football because right now, quite frankly, outside the slow mesh and a few little pre-motion snaps that Iowa's doing, Iowa's offense is not difficult to scout for opposing defenses at this moment in time.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. I think the issue is it's interesting, sort of a weird game because of Mark's performance individually and the perception of that performance in week one. You look at him individually in this game and you're like, I think if you're objective and you're actually just trying to read him for what it was, I think he actually played decent to above average. I thought he threw the ball well. Like there was no sign of those last week jitters where he his arm forgot how to work, right? Some of those early passes, the one that Ostrenga got hurt on, perfectly placed ball. Like we just got to make a play. A couple other passes. One was like a quick out route that he threw, and it was low, and I think it might have been dropped, but it was in the spot that only the receiver could get it. A couple others that were well placed. The one, like you said, this was later in the game when he was able to settle in, and you should be able to do this. But the one on the PI downfield to Anderson probably hits him in stride, right? So a lot of the concerns about Gronowski and a lot of the angst of the offense, the whole offensive conversation of the last few years stemming from the quarterback. Now everyone's kind of like, okay, where do I point to? Because Gronowski actually played okay and did a lot of good stuff with the running game you mentioned. So now it's like, okay, now who's to blame? And it goes to the receivers. I'm seeing a ton of stuff now about wow, Tim Lester, like, the memes that like they're wearing the same shirt over and over and over. It gets passed from Greg Davis, Ken O'Keefe, Greg Davis to Brian Ferentz to Tim Lester. Like, people are just roping him in. Now they're calling, everyone's not everybody, but I this is the first time I've seen it again in a while, is like we're back to calling for KF's head because the offense is never going to change under KF. People think KF has the play sheet in his hands during the game. So yeah, it's not Mark now, or at least he's not all to blame. He certainly did enough. So now why are we not doing it? He threw 13 for 24. I think that's a percentage of like 53-ish%. That's not good, but it's not the end of the world, especially when you consider
13 to 24.
yeah, especially when you consider one of those is like the last play of the game when he's, trying to heave for a 4th down, and then a couple others are that you have the several drops that like should have, like, those are, he's throwing for a good completion percentage if his people are helping him and doing what they should. So it's like,
yeah, that one to Ortworth when he escaped the pocket, it was a 3-yard little duck, and it does not get any easier.
No, like, he should have had a good completion percentage. I think the issue there, and again, it's with the slow start, it's with the entire strategy, is like, even if you're 16 of 24, you're 17 of 24, and you add in the average yards per catch on those, like, if you add in 4 more catches for 25 yards, it's like you're going to complete 17 passes for 110 yards.
Yeah.
It's got to be 175 or 200. So we're not, I don't know if being aggressive in the way that, like, hey, we're throwing those 40-yard bombs to Anderson is the actual way that we want to be aggressive. We need to throw and complete, attempt and complete more 12 to 15-yard passes than 5 to 10-yard passes.
Yeah.
And the game gets completely different just from a standpoint of flow, first downs. We actually had more first downs in this game too. So it's like,
Helson, you got like what, 2 16-play drives?
Yeah, two people I saw online are like, not more than 2 people, but they're making fun of like, oh, the classic Iowa 3rd and 7, and we throw a 5-yard, out or whatever. I promise you, like, they're not coached to do that. So there's some player fault here as well. You have to find this, like, the players have to be able to find the sticks. They have to be able to find the first down line and get there and actually catch a ball at 8 yards when we need 7. So it's like, there's fault everywhere. And I would, the end of the day, it wasn't, Rocco really didn't even beat us that much. That one play, it gets tipped up, it's 3rd down. If that play just falls incomplete or we intercept it, we're getting the ball back, and there's potential that we have the momentum. Gronowski takes the offense, we drive down, we establish a little run in that last 2.5 minutes, and we go kick a winning field goal. That's how thin of a margin these games are. That play almost felt like the karma or the world kind of righting itself after a bunch of the weird stuff that had happened in that game. And the world, I don't believe in this stuff either, but it kind of just feels that way of Iowa State probably deserved to win this game. And that one play is kind of what extended that last drive and allowed them to do so and come away with the narrowest margin of victory, basically, a repeat of last year. So they're just in a better spot 3 games in, and they're in a better spot than a lot of teams. They're in the front. They're front runners of the Big 12 now. They're 3-0. Clear
Kansas
path.
State's awful.
Kansas State's not what they thought they were. The rest of the Big 12, Arizona State lost last night. Like, there's questions in a lot of places. Iowa State.
Iowa State's gonna be back. I think they're back in the title, the Big 12 title. They're gonna have a legit.
At this point, they
yes.
Right. They're one Big 12 game in. There's a lot of season left to play. Who knows what happens with injuries with every team out there? There's just a lot of places that the season can go only 2 games into the year. They should feel good about and feel in the front seat, the driver's seat of the Big 12 and a clear path right to the college football playoff at this point. And Iowa and I said this before, Iowa's going to know a lot more after Indiana, because I don't know how much you learn after the next 2 games.
Totally.
This game's behind us now. So, the Big Ten is now what matters. There's still a path. Technically, Iowa could theoretically run the table the rest of the season and go 9-0 in the Big Ten and find themselves in the Big Ten championship. unlikely, especially given what they put on the field so far, but they have to focus one game at a time, and that Indiana game is going to be a very big game. I
Yeah.
still think that the takeaway, because you don't make one loss turn into two or multiple, is that this is a good, probably top 15 Iowa State football team that you just lost to on a essentially effectively last second field goal not really, but a last drive field goal at their place in the second game of the year. There's a lot of runway to get better and win ball games and still go, who knows, 9-3, 10-2. It's still out there.
I'll tell you, man, that game against Rutgers is going to be so pivotal for how the season's going to go. Now they have, they had to beat Rutgers before, but just, I think, even relatively calm the nerves. Like, Iowa has to win at Rutgers.
Yeah.
And I think
if they lose that game, we're starting to have much different conversations. There's going to be a lot of,
it's going to get ugly. The thing that I think is frustrating Iowa fans a lot as well. And by the way, really quick, before I get into my overall point, I might be in the minority here, Tyler, but like, I'm not blaming Mark Gronowski as much for that interception as a lot of people are. He did what he was coached to do. I think it still could have been intercepted, but if Weegan doesn't slip on that break, at least he can test for the ball. And if he has to play a little bit of defense, he at least makes it a lot more difficult. When you're a quarterback, you're trained to just know where your player is going to be, and you do it based off muscle memory and timing. I don't think that was a bad throw by any means. I think he got way too much blame for that.
I think it was a good. This is
ironic to say, yeah.
Now we're taking a real this analogy I'm about to make is a real tangent. You hit a very niche audience, but in disc golf, which I play as a hobby sport,
yeah,
or even in regular golf, there's a saying that's like, good throw, bad shot, right? So
sure,
Mark made a great throw. It ends up being a bad play, but good throw, because if Weechan's standing and he makes that break and turns around, it probably hits him in the chest.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's a contested ball that because that DB was right there, but it's probably just a broken up pass. Right. So good throw, bad play.
Sure.
Right. Because, and you're right, he's throwing that ball. He's in rhythm before he ever sees Weechan go down. That ball's out of his hands probably at the exact moment that Weechan starts to lose his feet, and there's nothing he can do anymore. And so what you're going to tell him to not throw that? It was going to be a perfectly timed, kind of a back shoulder bang bang kind of play. So it is what it is.
No, I'm with you on that. And I again, I go back to what my column's going to be about. Apathy is turning into anger again against ranked teams.
The old cycle.
But I mean, Iowa, you got to think about this. Iowa has not pulled a road underdog upset, I believe, since 2015 at Wisconsin. They haven't beaten a ranked team since Spencer Petras hit Nico Ragaini in 2021. Mm-hmm. They have only been competitive in 2 of the past 10 ranked games. That's an issue.
Yeah.
You have to give KF credit for beating the teams he's supposed to beat, but at some point, it's not even about – it always is about the wins and losses, but I think you're going to know what I mean by this. At some point, you have to look competent against teams that are better than you and are ranked and are worthy of getting national respect. And again, this is not a Mark Gronowski issue, but he's going to take the fall here. That's why you bring in a guy like Mark Gronowski to narrow that gap. And I mean, I guess if you want to say, oh, like they competed yesterday, they were 3 points short. Ultimately, they were 3 points short. But if Iowa does not pull off at least one ranked win this season, I mean, what do you say? I mean, It's one of those things where, again, I think conversations get very difficult and very different. And there has to be some pressure because at some point, especially with the way college football is run now, you got to compete. And Iowa is slowly, not even slowly at this point. I hate being this reactionary, but they've lost 10 straight. They're not slowly trending away from being that, Tyler. They're nosediving. They have to pull out of this somehow.
Yeah, it's not good. And a lot of what we talked about on the show that we've done, multiple shows that we did, was what is success for Iowa this year, right? Understanding that they had a tough schedule. That they were going to go to Iowa State early in the year, and that they play 3 teams from the college football playoff from last season. And how do you judge that? Because could this be a year where they technically get better from the year prior but have a worse record? So how do you judge success there? A lot of people, now that the playoff is here, and as the playoff expands, this will become more the case. It's, did you make the college football playoff or not? For a lot of, I don't know if Iowa's quite there yet, but if you were going to lump them into like one tier, they're kind of in the tier that's like, a real successful season is playoff. And then after that, if they win or not, they made the playoff, that's successful. And if they don't make it, that's not successful. I think that's a very, very high bar to place on a team, especially considering that they're in a conference of 18 teams that has 3 blue bloods in it. And that's not even considering, 4 blue bloods in it. And then you also have Oregon, Nebraska on the right. Like, it's very tough to win games. But the perception is going to be, if we go 9-3 and we lose to Iowa State, I suppose the Iowa State game at that point would help if they have a great year. But if we're not competitive against Oregon, who just put up 70 yesterday, and we're not competitive against Penn State, who actually struggled yesterday a little bit, then it's like, okay, we're just stuck in this purgatory of, we beat teams we should, we have no chance against teams that we shouldn't. The Iowa State game, this result yesterday actually kind of is an outlier there, because theoretically we were not supposed to win that game and we were right there. But
it's also one of those things where you'll almost have to exclude them because it's a rivalry game. You throw it out the window.
Sure.
And if you look at the history, I mean, it's always competitive. It doesn't matter how bad Iowa State is or how good they are.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't beaten Iowa by more than 3 points in 20 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, you have to find a way to be the season perception changes so much. Even if it's like, if we're 9-3 again at the end of the year, and there's a lot of like ifs here, and we're going way down the line. Yeah. But if we go 9-3 this season, and the rest of the season plays out to where we lose to Oregon and Kinnick by 20 points, and we lose to Penn State and Kinnick by 20 points, and we win the other, 8 games that we have outside of them, people are going to be like, okay, 9-3, we won't be in the playoff. We won't have competed at all with the 2 big dogs in the Big Ten schedule, and we'll have lost to our in-state rival, Iowa State. There will be people that'll be like, this is not what we want. On the other hand,
going on the road to USC would be a hell of a win.
That would be a good win, and the Indiana win would likely be a respectable win, but people will still be wanting more. On the other hand, if we go 8-4 or 9-3 and we beat one of those teams and we lose, and one of those losses is like a tough loss at USC or a tough loss to Nebraska at Nebraska to a team, and they're respectable at the end of the year, the perception completely changes, because we at least get that big ranked win. Like, we get one ranked win against a team that is nationally competitive on a yearly basis. So, like, the wins and losses do matter, like you said, but ultimately, like, there's a perception of how competitive we were against each certain team, and we are failing miserably for the most part in that being competitive against teams that matter category right now. And that is probably, that is doing the majority of the damage, because in the end, we do win a lot of games, but they just are games that, again, it's apathy at this point. Like, we don't care about beating Purdue. We don't care about beating Northwestern. We want to win games that matter, and we're not doing that.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Tyler. I know this has been a very offense heavy, but I think that's kind of what we had to focus on. So I know we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but I will say a couple really quick positives. One, TJ Hall, again, I brought him up earlier. TJ Hall, 3 pass breakups. I thought he was great. Thought Cohen Entringer had a handful of standout plays as well. Another guy that I think we need to talk about more, and we probably will talk about more throughout the next several weeks, is I thought Carson Shire played great. He really got a chance to showcase himself. I thought Lutmer had a handful of good plays. Like, there are things about the defense. I still am worried about some of those elite matchups. But I thought again, you talk about, you hold them under 240. I think Rocco Becht only finished with, let me pull it up here. I have the stats here. Rocco Becht only had 134 yards. You take that 10 out of 10 times. And Rocco
Every
Becht,
time.
and I said on our other show this week, I think Rocco Becht's a top 5 quarterback in college football. Like, I think he is that good of a player. And he's a future NFL quarterback. Starter, I don't know. But he's going to be on a roster for a long time, right? Special teams outside, like Drew Stevens is money. I thought Reese Dakin had outside that first punt. I thought he played great. there were aspects of the win that were good. And I think when you look at the of the loss that were good, and you have to take a look at everything in the totality of it. But those glaring, just almost black holes just shadow some of those good performances. And again, from I think a fan base perspective, rightfully so, I think people have a right to be frustrated, especially since it's funny you said deja vu, Tyler. That was the first line in my story yesterday. It just felt like deja vu.
Yeah.
Just all over again. So any final thoughts from you? I just gotta make sure, like, there were some positives, but again, I totally understand why people are just kind of
Yeah, I think the way you think about this game is just imagine if that ball just happens to be tipped and it goes incomplete and Iowa State punts and Iowa's the one who goes and kicks the field goal. Almost nothing about the game, nothing of any importance changes. Iowa still has a poor offensive performance. Mark still goes 13.
Yeah.
Well, I guess not necessarily. He probably has a slightly better stat line if he makes a final drive there. We have a little bit more offensive yards. We score 16 instead of 13, right? There's very minuscule changes of that game, but the outcome is now all of a sudden what we want. And now we're sitting here going, okay, we escaped with a win. There's some things we need to work on, but we're feeling pretty good going into week 3. The entire perception changes, the entire narrative and things that people are saying about Mark and KF and Tim Lester, everything changes. And it's literally that close. It's literally a circus tip in the air catch by one of their best athletes that saves them from the game, right? Theoretically. So take that take that with a grain of salt and realize there is a ton to take away that is positive here and that they can roll with and know that they're going to, because this game's gone and they're already on to UMass. So we can only look ahead, and there's a lot to still be had. There's an entire Big Ten slate. If we're sitting here having the same conversation after that Indiana game, it's going to be a different story. But for now, you have to just take it for what it is and keep going.
And before everybody says, like, oh, David, Tyler, you guys are just putting lipstick on a pig, we've spent the last 30 minutes basically criticizing Iowa's offense and critiquing it. Point blank, it was not good enough. It has to be better. They're the excuses have run out. They have to be competitive against ranked teams, because at this point, again, I think Iowa needs to find a way to pull out the nosedive in games that really, really matter and that people really pay attention to. Because again, the final record people care about, but people want to see good football against quality opponents.
Yep.
And I think right now, Iowa's just in a really tough spot, but they have to be able to figure it out. And you're right. They're only going to focus on what's ahead. But even if Iowa wins that game, you're right. Maybe the perception's different, but there's two sides of the fan base, right? There's a side of the fan base says, you know what? It was a poorly run game. Iowa just defense had to find a way. Yeah. Drew Stevens has a cannon of a leg. He probably is good from 60, right? He hit 60 in pregame warmups. And then and they'll still be critical of Mark and Tim Lester and some of the other factors. But then you're going to have another sector of the fan base that said, who cares? Iowa won. Doesn't matter.
Right.
And that's still almost a very interesting spot for the program to be in. But again, we're getting hypotheticals. Tyler, thanks for coming up clutch, bud. I really, really appreciate it. And
of course, man.
You and I are going to lock in on Wednesday for the KF Press Review Show. That's going to be all on social media, Spotify, iTunes, Apple.
All the places.
Apple Music, YouTube, and everything else. So Tyler Kluver, Washed Up Walkons, David Eickholt. Talk to you soon.